biggest thing I think too that a lot of people like, we're blessed. I think here in the Metro Detroit area, I think we're blessed with how many meetups we have and how many RIAs we have.
Welcome to the Michigan Real Estate Investor Network podcast, hashtag the network. This is episode 8, brought to you by Xpert Window Company.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the Michigan Real Estate Investment Network podcast. This is the roundtable, hashtag the network. Listen to us on any place that you listen to your podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. Just pop in the network and we'll pop up.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all. And I'm here with Jeff, Nate, and Frank, and we're all here to talk about how networking has impacted our business. So I know for me, that's how I met all of you, was through networking groups and just getting out there and being a part of things. So what have you found? Have you found different people, or have you found different partners, or have you learned new ways to do things? What has been the biggest impact from networking for you?
Well, networking in the real estate investment community and really in any business, networking will become one of your biggest assets out of anything that you do. Network, you can find anybody, but what I really found best for me was I found a community that thinks like me, wants to do the same things as me, and it's helped me be motivated. It's motivated me. I guess that's what's networking has really kept me in the game, I guess you want to say, kept me motivated, kept me going.
The support that you can find there.
Yeah.
Sometimes your friends and family don't quite understand what we're doing. So
Not at all.
So it's nice to find, like you said, like-minded people that are there to support you and your journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Nate?
Everything he said, and but on top of that, like your opportunities just like explode. Like last, 10 deals I found were probably all through networking. If no one knew who I was, I wouldn't have got any of those. My brokers brought me stuff. Wholesalers, I like to think they call me first couple calls. So, a couple of those deals I get like that. I have a house under contract now, was brought to me from a real estate agent, and he just knew I bought houses like that. So kind of before he listed it, I got to see it, put it under contract. But it's all just through networking. If I didn't do any of that, no one would know who I was, and I wouldn't get any of those opportunities.
Well, and I was going to say that too, is, you start going out, and then if somebody comes across a deal, they might say, hey, do you know somebody? And even if they don't know you personally, they might be able to reach out to you through somebody else. So, that's definitely a big impact.
Absolutely.
As well. And Frank, you and I both are, more in a vendor market as well, not just an investor market. So have you found that it helps with your?
I think calling it networking and that's what it ultimately is. But I think the biggest thing is you're getting out there, meeting people, as Jeff said, and Nate, that really think like you, understand like you, because when you talk to, let's say, friends and family, you say, I'm a real estate investor, I'm a CPA, I'm a title company. They've already determined what you do. It doesn't matter. And now every pitch you say on top of it is selling. They already put you in that bucket as they think. But as people get to know you, you start to learn a lot more about what they are. Jeff and Nate talking about being a real estate investor, if they talk to somebody, they're pigeonholed with that person that has that one rental property, even though these guys are doing a lot more than that. And I think as you network, you start to talk to people who ultimately become acquaintances, become friends, people you relate with. You have that common interest, and it doesn't even feel like you're going to that networking. And really, all of the real estate investor groups have that common focus. It's not like a local chamber event where everyone's just trying to pass a card and sell you on the next thing, and deals just come to people through that relationship of knowing somebody, as opposed to trying to push the deal. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I've really noticed in seeing people out there. And I'm sure that's kind of worked for you?
Yeah, when you go, and especially the first couple times that you go and you don't know anybody else and you're going there and it's a little nerve wracking, but once you go a couple times, they start becoming friends
Yeah,
and
friends.
friendly. You start seeing
Yeah.
the same people over and over, and you get to know them a bit and their business, which is nice. And then even as hard as it is for some people to get up the nerve to go, I can tell you, I mean, there's days where I don't feel like going, but I'm always glad that I went. When it all said and
When it's said and
Yeah,
done, yeah, you're happy.
absolutely.
You're happy.
I'm always glad that I went.
And the biggest thing I think too that a lot of people like, we're blessed. I think here in the Metro Detroit area, I think we're blessed with how many meetups we have and how many RIAs we have. We have a more than a lot of other states have. I mean, we got 4 or 5 times the amount. There's almost a meetup, almost every night of the week. You can go to a network and meet people. And one big key that I think almost everyone here, every network we have here, all the groups, you can get up and speak at them, which is, I know it's hard to do. Sometimes it's very intimidating, but I found that for myself, when you're doing this, if you get up every time and you speak and make sure you say your name, who you are, what you do, what you're looking for, your interest, and like you're talking about the pigeonhole stuff, that kind of breaks the barrier because then everybody kind of gets to know you. And then it truly becomes a networking event because then you start becoming friends. Oh, that guy, yeah, I talked to him. Let me go talk to him. And I know for me, it's worked tremendously. The people I've met through that, because you break down that barrier, you get up there, then they'll come talk to you or you go talk to them. But it's very important to get up and talk, I think, at every event that you do. I think you need to get up there. It's tough. If you're not a speaker, I like speaking in public. So to me, it was okay, comfortable. Some don't like it, but just get up and do it. And I think you'd be happy.
I'm the one that hates it, and I'm, as you're saying, Jeff, you probably run into people that you looked at and you didn't know what they did or how they could help you or you could help them. Next thing you know, you ended up making a connection beyond just how you two are going to mutually financially benefit, and then it all just ends up coming. And as you said, with the meetup groups, there's a lot of networking, but there's also a large education resource that somebody with zero experience up to the seasoned investor can get in and find their way of the different groups of which one fits their focus, but they're finding people that are struggling the same way and winning the same way that they are and able to contribute.
Absolutely.
And it is something too, though. Like if you go to one networking event, it doesn't really do anything for you. You got to go a bunch and get to know people. Like the other day, I went to the multifamily one, and Frank was there. I already knew Frank, and I know him, through this group. If I didn't know him, that event wouldn't have been as good for me because I already knew him. Otherwise, I would have got reintroduced to him, and that would have been cool. But instead, we got to talk about a lot more complicated things, and other people joined in, and the whole event was a lot better. Able to meet a lot more people that way too. Everything's exponential, especially if Jeff here, everybody knows he's a wholesaler and what he does. If someone walks into a group and it's I'm going to buy something off Jeff Shipp, and someone else is oh, I know Jeff, he's a good guy, then more likely that guy's going to buy it from you. It's a word of mouth referral.
Yeah,
because
does.
everybody. It's real interconnected. So the more you do stuff,
it
so
gives you the
but it's
credibility.
exponential. You got to build on it. You can't just walk in one day and be done.
No. For me, it's been since I've been basically back here in Michigan doing it full time. It's been 2 years of every meeting. I hit almost every meeting that I can go to, and I expand out. If a new one comes, I go to it. I got invited to a couple more that I didn't even know about, and go start hitting them. And you just got to go, like you said. You got to go.
Oh, yeah.
It's tough, but you got to go. If you really want to do this and you want to network, you got to get out there and meet the people. They're not going to come to you. You got to go meet them.
And I mean,
That's a big thing.
Right now, you have people doing all kinds of things all through Metro Detroit of every aspect.
Yeah.
And one side, from a tax and financial standpoint, able to work with investors. But I can tell you, even being around, I'm seeing things that I didn't know existed, or that the way people did business. And
huge.
And then, as Nate was saying, really coming into that group, you start to even sometimes sit back and watch who's at the different groups and who's getting acknowledgments from other people within the group.
Yes.
And you don't have to go and really vet everybody on your own. You're just standing back. And I've been to ones where sometimes the speaker has called out a person for doing a good job. At the end, that person's getting good referrals if they're a contractor or a service provider, and it's just kind of going, and people start to recognize that face that I don't know what that guy does, but I see him around, and it's kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah. Well, think about it. We're all sitting here around this table. The reason we're sitting here is because of networking.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we all met one another.
Yeah.
I mean, Erika here at Michigan Investment Title, I would have never met her if it wouldn't have been for the networking. Now, that's all I use for everything. I would have never met her. I would have never knew her of her company. We wouldn't be sitting at this table.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. It's all due to networking. I mean, it all adds up and adds up. It's amazing.
Well, and a lot of the networking events, people are talking done together.
Yeah.
So, you know, I try to stay ahead of the curve as well, but that's what the networking does, is it allows you to learn about different things and different ways to structure your deals. So, you know, it's not just you have to buy with cash. I mean, there's different ways you can utilize a mortgage, or you can do subject twos or wraparounds. And there's so many different ways to do things. And, you know, these ways kind of worked a while ago. And then when the market changed, they're just not as common anymore. And now things are starting to come back, but they're tweaking them just a bit and, you know, making them more beneficial financially for the investor. And it's a really good learning opportunity. There's not just one way to do something.
Yeah,
And-
that's so true.
And reading a book, I mean, not that that's not a great way to learn, but there's more than one way to do it.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. Nate, didn't you, from your networking, didn't you just do some of them crazy type stuff here recently? Didn't you do some out of the box type stuff in your financing and everything?
Yeah.
In some of your deals?
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, networking also has gotten me a lot of private money, but yeah, also you learn a bunch of stuff. So the last deal I did was like an assumable loan, so it didn't have to bring as much money, whatever, you know. But same thing, I learned about that through talking with people. And that was the first one I've ever implemented. I just read about it before. Same thing, reading about it different than doing it. But that was cool. But yeah, all that stuff helps. Like I said, it just depends what you're trying to do. But any avenue you're in real estate or any business, I think networking's massive for learning, for meeting, for opportunities, for money, growth, anything you can think of.
You know, the one thing I can say to watch for, though, is if you go to see anybody that's like a national speaker, the way that they will describe on how to do the deals doesn't necessarily work in every state or area that you're in. So, I mean, that's just something to watch for as well, because a lot of people think, oh, well, he said to do this. And we get calls all the time about doing double closings. Well, double closings in Michigan are different than double closings in other states.
Yeah.
So there's just different ways. The deal can still get done, but it's not as how they describe it to be, and how exactly it doesn't necessarily work that way. You can still make it
very
work,
true,
but there's tweaks, there's different things. So going to your local meetups and networking events, I think, is where you're going to get your best information.
And I think you're so true on that. It's all local. It's all like, you know, I spent a year down in South Carolina. They don't use title companies there.
Yep.
And I didn't think about it. I'm from Michigan. I didn't think about it. It's all lawyer based down there. It's like, you guys do what? You know, I'm down there doing real estate, and I'm like, okay, that's different than what I'm used to. It's like, okay, show me how we do this now. Who's the lawyer? You know, who's the person? And that is the perspective, because some of them guys were bigger speakers down there. And you're absolutely right. You got to look at that. Your local's your best.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls here after like the big gurus come into town, and people all saying, I don't need any money. I can just buy houses. And we have to kind of walk them through a little bit. You know, not necessarily true. I did have one guy, though, that did it for $2.
Oh, wow.
Which was amazing.
That's impressive.
It was a good deal. It was a good deal. He had got himself some financing and bought a small apartment complex for $2. Brought $2 to the table.
Wow.
Crazy.
Well,
That's great.
I remember Uncle Carlton with his no down payment, and all said everybody can.
Anybody can do this. Yeah, anybody can do this.
Which, I mean, as you say, I mean, so a lot of what what's happening, and you have to find out who's doing what today. And some of these tips have worked in the past or whatever, but the underlying concepts are all there. It's just now, how do I implement it to my market? Because all those theories are there. It's just, and I've seen some of the speakers talk from a tax or an estate planning standpoint, and it all makes sense. But if you only own one rental, you don't need 14 entities and trusts and all this stuff. But if you're going into that, so they explain a lot of concepts but don't really qualify that detail. So it is information, but now you need to go hit the people that are actually doing it and say, hey, I heard this, how's this work? And a lot of people will tell you that maybe that worked 3 years ago, or how to really roll that out, I think. So
well, like Nate said, it was a very, very valid point. He had never did that before. He'd read about it, but somebody here locally walked him through it. Here's how you do this. And that's what you can really get with your local meetups and your local networking, is there is plenty of people that will help you exceed where you want to even go. They're going to try to push you to get better, and they're going to give you all their tips. I mean, we're real lucky once again here in the Metro Detroit about that. A lot of people have that, share mentality. They don't have the scarce mindset. Let's share, let's, work together. And that's all part of what, the network is. It's all about sharing and trying to build up the community as a whole. And I think that's just a great thing. And these people will teach you, and they'll show you. And if you mess up, they'll let you know. And that's okay too. Hey, you mess that one up, don't do it again. Do it this way. And that's perfectly great. And that's all from the local,
Yeah. And then the same thing, you actually just reminded me, like, especially when I started out, obviously I didn't know everything. I still don't. But, like my first foundation issue, I used to be scared of them. Saw a foundation issue. I ended up I just called a guy I bought a house off, who I knew he had, he said he did 100 deals. So I called him. I said, I got a foundation issue. What should I do? And he gave me a number to a foundation expert, real good price. I brought him out. He's like, no, this is easy. It was, I think it was $2,000. I was thinking like 15 in my head. So I was like, all right, do it. But that was all because my network. That networking, I happened to have bought a house off the guy, but I met him at a networking event. That's how I bought it. But just utilizing your network, if you don't know something, if your network's big enough, you can pretty much do anything. If you run into like a plumbing issue, you never had an issue like that, just call someone that knows about it and they'll tell you about it. But it's all just due to networking.
Yeah, they'll help you. Just think about that one that was in your mind. That was like a $13,000 savings.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
it's $2,000. Like,
so it went from not a deal to a real good deal.
Yeah, like, ooh, that got good. Yeah,
and it's just all through your network. So it's huge, bigger than you. Like I keep forgetting stuff every time you guys say something. I remember. That's good though. I love it.
And actually, that's helped me with my personal home as well, right? You have a problem at home. You can make a phone call to a few people and they'll say, oh, call this guy. So, I mean, and it's worked out really well.
Absolutely. I love that part. Call this one. Honey, I need this done. Oh, wait a minute. I know just the one. Let me call him right now. I got that.
Well, I'm actually having lunch with someone on Monday that reached out to me and heard about some tax strategy and asked me to maybe do a quick post. I said, well, it's a little more detailed. Let's meet up, and it's just kind of through networking, and we're just gonna meet up for lunch, talk a little bit, and kind of go from there. But I mean, really starting to work with someone as a resource and able to help somebody and help them with their thing, and things just kind of come. And Nate, you mentioned the foundation issue. I remember a while back on one of these podcasts, you had mentioned that foundation's not an issue for you. And I want to say a couple days before, I heard someone else say that was a turnoff for them, that other things. And at that point, I can tell you, if that other person pops up, you connect them with you or something. Yeah. And I mean, it's where people are able to work together outside of their comfort zones. And you start to realize, well, Nate, foundation's not an issue. And someone else that has a great deal, just call Nate, see if it's a big deal, and maybe you guys do something. And you start putting people together that are working out on things.
Yeah. You start making deals, making partners. And, And one of the biggest things too with the whole networking, the wife and I were talking about it the other day. Now 90% of the people I do anything with, friends wise, anything, is all now from real estate. It's kind of like, okay, you got your other friends, but their visions aren't what yours are. And through networking, now I've met all these great people. These are the people I talk to 90% of the time. And you become more absorbed into it too, which helps. I mean, you still got to have a balance, but you know what I'm saying? This is your passion, your love when you get into it, and the networking brings it.
It's kind of fun if you're sitting there and you're relaxing and you're grilling a couple burgers or whatever, and then you're doing a deal at the same time or figuring out how to make a deal work. So you're making money while you're eating good food.
Yeah, it's great times. Yes. No, it's really good, really good.
Well, then potentially it might be a business meal that would be deductible by management companies. So.
We're going to have a lot more lunches because I need to know all this. I don't want to give more of my money away.
And I mean, it's sometimes comments like that are sitting down and talking, and I have people talk to me that sometimes it's really understanding the different steps or as you evolve through this process. And obviously, Jeff and Nate are at different points in life, family-wise, kids-wise, planning, but heading down those roads. So sometimes you ask, well, what's the planning that would help them? Well, we need to sit down and kind of take a look because things are different, or maybe something's not there today, but now educating people to call with that question when that time pops up. And it's really just, as you said, becoming friends and working together that you know what friends to call, and then things just happen from there.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely. And then you get to vent on them too when you become friends. You're like, wait, but this didn't work.
Well, and Frank, I know you've done some speaking in those networking meetings, and it's really difficult because people will ask you questions like, "How do I get started?" or "What's best?" But it's really hard to do a general talk because everybody is different. Everybody that's there is in a different situation. So, how much they're going to, devote time to it, or how many deals that they're going to do, or where they're buying, or if they have partners. Everybody's situation is different. So when you're speaking to a group, sometimes it's a little more difficult to give those broad answers because what you do is really an individualized equation.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I can talk about from a tax standpoint, part of an estate standpoint, then refer to an attorney for structure. But one of the things that I see quite often is people want asset protection, tax planning by certain entities, meaning LLCs owning their properties. Well, I'm seeing some investors running into landlord issues in the court system if it's individually owned versus LLC that from my standpoint, I don't really care about. I'm trying to help you from a tax standpoint. But if you're talking one rental property in Warren that you don't have much exposure, you might be better off owning it individually from an eviction standpoint. And I mean, that's where I can tell you the tax standpoint, but go call someone that deals in Warren and talk about your issues, because maybe you don't want to have to hire an attorney with your bad tenant. And so I can tell you one side, but if you have to hire an attorney every step of the way for something you know how to do, or your exposure, and I've kind of learned some of those pain points that people are having. So I can tell you this big organizational structure you need, but it may not apply. And that's where it's case by case.
Yeah, most definitely. Nate, you go to a lot of the meetups, and I know that, you said you went to a new multifamily meetup and stuff like that you had went to.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been some talk before about some new meetups getting started and stuff like that in this area. What are you working on right now? What are you looking at?
Like investing.
Gonna put you on the spot.
You mean investing wise, or
investing wise, and in your future, what are you looking at doing?
I'm actually looking, and I'm gonna do it. I'm actually gonna start a multifamily meetup around here. There's really not many. The one I went to was in Monroe, so it's pretty far from me. I still go to it, but around here there's not many. So I'm actually gonna start one with a couple other people, and then go from there. But yeah, because it's huge. Like even going down there was a little error in the direction, so I think it had less people than otherwise would have. But there were like 13 of us, and it was great. That's all the people talked about was multifamily. Where other meetups, generally are like wholesaling and flipping. That's what most people are in. So I'm personally pursuing apartment buildings, and that I'm actually moving everything I'm doing over to that. So that's what I want to focus on. So I'll still go to the other ones, but yeah, I'm trying to go to more multifamily meetups, but also start one closer to around here to serve a lot more people and bring people together. Same thing at multifamily actually is a lot more network based even than single family. Single family, you can do everything by yourself. Even my first 3 years, I did network, but I was doing everything by myself. Even besides hiring contractors, but multifamily, like, it depending on how big the complex is. If you have a 200 unit, you might need 2 general partners and 30 limited partners to raise the money for it. To put together syndication, you need a guy like a CPA. You need lawyers, you need all kinds of stuff. So it's a huge networking game. So I'm actually trying to step that up a lot on my end.
Well,
even more so, and like target it a lot better. So
which is good. And the reason I brought that up because you and I had talked about it, and I knew that you were talking about doing a meetup in that, and in Michigan, in our area, there's meetups I've been to that have had 5 people, and then sometimes you go and there's 200 people at a meetup. There's a broad range, but if there's 2 people, you can network.
Yeah.
If there's just 2 of them there, you can network, and you got to start somewhere at all the times, right? So if you get it going, like Nate, he'll get his going, and it's a big interest. It'll draw people and it'll make it to them, and then next thing you know, you got a meetup going, and you got a network of a situation where you can meet people and do business.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at that as even if I only had 5 people show up, once a month, as long as they actually are inclined to know something about apartments or they already do, that's all I care about. You're just trying to get that targeted mindset, basically. And if there was 50 people showed up, that's great. Like I said, more interested in quality versus quantity in that regard.
Yeah.
And like you said, 2 people, even if 2 people didn't know anything and all they wanted to do was learn about it, 2 people's better than being by yourself, and going through that whole journey,
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
And I think the one thing that I'm hearing Nate and Jeff saying, due to the size, I mean, we're all looking what's in it for us, as your first thought. But really the key is if there's two people, as Nate's saying, if they can help out, and I mean, there might be times that he's the most advanced one there and out there helping people. Well, then next week someone's helping him, and it may not be the same people, but it all comes full circle with everybody being able to contribute to each other. And there's things that I'm learning, and there's things that I'm able to help people, and really somebody's helping me because I'm able to help somebody else, and that's really where it all comes together. It's not always about having that large meetup that you're going to get the most information from. Sometimes you're going to be the most knowledgeable in what you can give to that meetup, and is really
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and there's so many different kinds. So you can get the ones where it's very broad and very general, and they bring in speakers, and you sit and it's educational. And then there's the other ones where you just walk in and you have to introduce yourself to everybody. Yeah. But then you get those specialized subgroups, which are always a little more niche focused, and it might be a smaller group of people that show up to that one, but they are all very vested in that one area of investing.
Yeah. Very true.
Or you get where I met Frank, it was just kind of a real estate hub, and there was only 5 of us. The group fell apart, but Frank and I are still standing. So,
hey, see, good. So it worked. That networking worked that day. You made that connection.
That's it.
No, it is, and some of you guys have heard me say this before. From networking, last year, 70 to 80% of my business come from partnering with other people that I had met at an event, at a real estate networking event. I had met them. 70, 80% of my business last year was with partners. Now this year, I'm getting ready to go into another partnership with somebody else. We're going to do some bigger stuff, going to really take a run at some stuff. And that's from networking. I would have never met these people if I wouldn't have met them in a real estate networking event that we're both making money together. The other partners, I do it with a whole bunch of other people, and it's strictly from networking. It's like, okay, I like this. For me, it's kind of like my niche. I do some stuff on my own. Nate and I were talking earlier, about some of these flips, and that's all on my own. And I found that, I do like doing them, but I'd rather do the stuff with partnerships and with networking and working with people, because it just,
It's more
to me,
fun.
it's more fun. Yeah, I hate, I'm overworking on this house by myself. I want to, I want to run my head through the wall sometimes. It's like, let me get myself out of that. But you know what? If you got a partner, they're there to help. You help them, they help you. Somebody to kick it with, and you just get there, and it's all through networking.
Yeah.
I've met them all.
And
networking.
And you can actually like leverage each other's strengths. So like you're probably a very strong networker. Like I met you, real social guy.
Yeah.
You could partner up with someone that's not good at that at all, but very detail oriented, and you might not like that. Partner together, and it's perfect. You don't have to build that side. Get better at what you do, and he can get better at what he does, and you guys will both do like 5 times more than what you would have by yourself.
Absolutely right.
So that's how I always look at it.
No, that's so true. That's so true.
And a lot of times that networking from whoever you're meeting, you end up venturing into larger deal territory faster than you would have ever on your own, because you didn't know where to start, or you didn't have that full comfort to take that task on all by yourself. And sometimes even having that partner, you both might have the same knowledge, but you have that comfort level now that, well, if a second person's looking at this with me and agrees on this deal, maybe it is a good deal. And
that's true.
When you're both looking at it and you both come to the same conclusion, your chances of winning on that deal. And a lot of times that's where some of the greatest partnerships are established. If you go out and said, I want to be partners with you because we just should be partners, those don't work the best. Or we were childhood friends, and I see that a lot. And it's usually people it's usually people that stumble on something together that sometimes had no other even common interest in life, except they had some common vision. And it's through the networking you meet those people.
Well, you look at what Nate said. I mean, he's going into the big game. Okay, that's what I call it. When you start doing that, okay, wholesale and flipping, all that's a different level. When you start going into the multifamilies for a buy and hold perspective in that's a whole nother level of doing this game. He's stepping up into that game. He's ready to go. He's got the experience. He's jumping into it. But as you heard him say, he can't do it on his own. You need people. You need to network to find them people.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have them in our back door.
Yeah.
You got to network and find them. And that's what Nate's saying too. He's out there actively pursuing, trying to find people to do big deals with, to step up his game. Yeah. And I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal.
And actually, this brings us right back full circle to where we started. The networking for support and finding like-minded people. And that's where you're going to find those great partnerships, people that are willing to work it with you. And you also start to figure out from networking, and you can kind of vet them from networking, if these are good people to partner with and to go forward with. So I think that kind of brings us wrapped around right back to the beginning.
Right back to where we were. Yeah, sure does. Yeah, bro, we're full circle. Full circle. Absolutely.
So any takeaways that you any nuggets to give before we wrap this up?
Just like I said before, get out there, network, and introduce yourself in the best way. Clench your fist, do whatever you got to do. Get up there and speak if you can.
Well,
get up there.
You also do something that's memorable, and you say almost the same thing every time when you introduce yourself, and everybody remembers you for that.
Yeah, they do.
So, consistency it certainly works with that.
Yeah, it does for me, because everybody says it now, so it worked. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nate, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like some people, even me, like I still am, but sometimes I go to networking events and I'll be over there and I don't know anybody or something, and once in a while I get a little nervous, don't want to talk to someone, but then you got to just think about it. They're there for the same reason, like they're there to talk to you. So if someone's sitting over there, you just walk up, talk to them. That's the whole point in them being there too. So just kind of just put yourself out there. That's what everybody's doing there. That's the other cool part, is it's not like you're in some random like restaurant and you walk up to someone and say, hey, like you interested in real estate? Like that's why they're there.
Like a pickup line.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they're there for. But yeah, that'd be it. Just as long as you realize that it's not that awkward.
And actually, if you find those people that are standing alone, they might actually
talk to you about more and stay up. Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes they're more valuable actually than some other people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
True.
Yeah, Frank.
I think Nate's got a great idea. Let's go to a restaurant, sit down with random people, and maybe you find your next investor. Yeah, I mean, like everyone says, you just go out there and talk to people, meet people, because there's a lot of people that sometimes certain areas, I mean, you never know. And I'm starting to learn everybody and what's in everybody's wheelhouse, and sometimes it's not even something that comes together for you, but who you could even refer them to or work with them both ways, and really getting your story out there. What's your what you're familiar with, what you like, how you can help. And when you're offering to help, everything else just kind of comes, and people like you, start to do business with you and able to work with you.
Yeah, can I squeeze one thing in off
Yeah,
that? Yeah,
yeah.
well, what he said, the best way, like, actually to build your network and to be important in the network you're building is to offer help. Like, like if just say, like, I hear he tells me Jeff is having an issue with this, and Jeff can't figure it out. If I can go, not even out of my way, if I'm just like, oh, here, this guy, and shoot him a number and he uses it and it helps him out, that's awesome. I got another guy, he's a wholesaler. He's actually flipping his own house. It's not Jeff, someone else. And he asks me questions all the time now. So I help him all the time. I throw him all kinds of stuff. And he just threw me like 2 or 3 more deals that I don't know if he has them yet. But same thing. He threw them because he asked for he asked for a cement guy. I gave him a cement guy and he loved it. He's like, I went through 20 guys. One guy showed up and he was terribly overpriced. So, but if you can just be helpful in any way, it's great. So, that's what I'm saying. Just try to help as any way you can. It doesn't have to be a big gesture, but to them, it's huge. You save that guy $5,000.
So you get what you give,
Yep.
and you share the love.
That's fact.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure doing a roundtable with you, and
Thank
we will
you.
see you next time.
You've been listening to the Michigan Real Estate Investor Network podcast. Just call it the network. To subscribe to the show, go to www.michiganreinetwork.com, where you can have the show sent right to your inbox. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. If you'd like to be on a future show, there's a link on the site to submit your info. The network is 100% focused on the Michigan real estate investing community. Whether you're brand new or a grizzled vet, we want you to be a part and share the love.